Some say he's a technical whiz. Some say he was born in Cornwall, while some say that he's on a journey. It's The Journey, and here's your host, David Hackett.
I've on another journey, and this journey takes us to a Harvard-educated author, and they are author of 41 children's books and then candid memoir for adults about joyfully overcoming food addictions. And we'll get onto their website as well when we get through to them. But today we welcome Bracha Goetz to the journey.
Hello. Hi there.
Hello. So, I always like hearing how people start their journey. So let's start at the earliest memory you can remember. What is your earliest memory?
It's significant because I remember, I don't think I remember before age 4, but at age 4, I remember wanting to be in school so much, but I wasn't old enough to go to school yet. And it was like this nursery school that I got to visit, and I went inside and it felt like, oh my gosh, like this is like utopia here. Like this is everything in the world is here. This is what I want. Like all the wisdom in the world is in this nursery school. It seemed like paradise. And I just was longing for it so much. I mean, I wasn't old enough to go, but I still remember visiting that nursery school.
Yeah, and I know for myself, nursery school was like that release where I could feel myself because I was, I liked a lot of things. I like books from early start, and the earliest memories I had of books was my grandparents. My nan used to have like 10 to 15 shelves dedicated to Mills and Boon's books. So that's how I grew up, just watching that, reading those. And, I liked loads of things, and school was a new challenge for me.
Yes. Yes.
So you like school. Was anything about school you enjoyed particularly?
I wanted to learn about everything. I just wanted to learn about the world and get as much wisdom as possible. That was my goal for almost my whole life. I think, I still feel that way.
So going into the teens, as you got older, that passion for school, learning never died. Nothing. You just wanted to build on what you learned.
Yes, but it became a desperate search. In my teen years, it was I felt something very significant was missing, and I didn't know what it was. So I feel that's when the food addiction started. It was like I could never get enough to fill me up. There was something that was missing, something so deep, and I didn't have a name for it. So again, I kept thinking, if I get enough knowledge, maybe that will fill the hole. And so I worked really hard in school, and I got into Harvard, and even at Harvard, I also did really well. Like I was an honors student there, but the food addictions were actually getting worse while I was in Harvard, and because it wasn't filling the hole. I thought it would, and I kept trying more and more desperately, but it didn't.
And I assume it was like an empty piece of you couldn't replace because it was that difficult.
Yes.
So you was in Harvard, and obviously you was finding it difficult. Now, I've got no notes, so I'm just basing this on how we're talking. But being having food issues, food difficulties, whatever you want to call it, you know, do you think that defined you? Do you think that made you see things differently? Do you think it made you better? Do you think it made you worse?
It made my world very narrow. As the addictions got worse, my world, it's like being in a prison. An addiction is a prison that gets smaller and smaller. And there was a good quote. Addiction is giving up everything for one thing. Recovery is giving up one thing for everything. Like when you recover from an addiction, the world comes back to you. Everything you had protected yourself off, you put all these coverings on your life and made it very narrow. All of that opens up when you're able to crack open your addiction and break out of it.
Yeah. And did you have any support helping you apart from your family? Did you have anyone supporting you? Or was it all you by yourself?
It was very interesting because when things got to the absolute worst, when I hit rock bottom, was actually in medical school after I graduated from Harvard. And I looked like I was a success, but inside I was miserable. And as when you have an addiction, you do everything in secret. Nobody knows how you're suffering. So when I finally I went to see a psychiatrist when I was in my first year of medical school, and I said everything that I was doing. I just let it all out, all my secrets. And the funny thing was, he was a Japanese psychiatrist. He said to me, I think I had a summer break coming between my first and second year, 6 weeks off. He said, I think you're going to find yourself spiritually this summer. And I really think that's going to help you. It was the strangest thing because how did he know that? But that's what happened, actually.
And then obviously you had this break. And then when did the spiritual awakening occur to you? Did you feel it straight away or did it just gradually come in?
Good question. When I found my lost heritage, when I discovered it, it was an immediate feeling of such intense joy, like this was the treasure I was looking for in my own backyard. But I didn't even know that this deep spiritual wisdom existed before. When I found it, immediately I felt such joy. But of course, until I integrated it, that took some time. And for the addictions to subside, to not feel that intense hunger anymore. But from when I was able to integrate it into my life, the wisdom of life, then I was never running on empty any longer. So ever since then, it's been a more joyful life because that hole was never as deep as it was back then.
Yeah, and I can imagine because I'm not, can't experience it and say I understand, but it seems like a refreshing, like it was a reborn you, revitalized you. You felt a purpose.
Exactly those words. I was searching for years to understand what's the purpose to life. Why? I didn't see the reason for living. Once I was given the purpose to life, then all the grayness became full of color again. The whole world became bright and beautiful again because I could now understand our purpose for being here, which is what I was searching for before.
Yeah, and I know this allergy, an allergy when you describe it, it's like you said about being closed in and seeing only one sort of thing. It's like those barriers, those thorns, whatever you want to describe them, just breaking away and seeing everything around you, like as if you're a newborn, and it is a reborn sense of feeling.
Yes, exactly. And and in a way, you're giving birth to your own soul, which I didn't even know I was a soul. Like, I didn't know I was a spiritual being until then. I felt like I might be. I felt like, but when a person has an addiction, they, the more desperately they try to fill it with external things, but it doesn't work. The hole gets deeper because it's not a physical hole, it's a spiritual hole. So nothing else is ever going to fill it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this revitalized, reborn you, did you discover that feeling of how you felt when you first went to the nursery school where you thought everything's a challenge? And I like that
It,
sense.
it's kind of similar in that sense of, oh my gosh, this is paradise. I love what you said because it's almost an analogy. The world became a paradise again. Now, it's still filled with challenges, it's still filled with pain.
Hmm.
But now there's an understanding that there's an ultimate good reason for everything. There's a purpose to it all. Because before this, it all felt like anarchy. There was no sense to anything. And why do people develop food addictions or other addictions? It's from a loss of a sense of control in life. You feel out of control and you feel the world is out of control. So, so, so regaining a sense of goodness about my own being and a sense of goodness about the world and its ultimate purpose changed everything.
Yeah, and obviously you talk about these subjects now to help people in your book and as it said, about you wrote books for children, which we talk about in a minute. But I assume you talk about that in the book, what you've written for food addiction.
Exactly. My memoir is the only book that I wrote for adults because I don't like to write big books. This book is not a book I really wrote. I took excerpts from my diaries, my journals, my letters. So it's like a documentary. You could see me developing the food addiction and then healing from it. It's like a psychological mystery that you go through with me, because when I finished compiling the book is when I understood about the thread tying it all together and how I was able to heal by nourishing my hungry soul.
Yeah, and then now I like that because obviously that's where our journey is, and that's what the purpose of the podcast is about, journey, because everyone has a journey, and your journey's gone from light to dark to light again, and it's just good to see that you've overcome that darkness in your life. And and like you said, there is still many bumps and turns and diversions on that, but that is part of the life. That is part of going on a journey. You have to take sometimes the odd turn off, but not deviate from it too much because you're staying focused, and that's where your focus is now. You stay in focus because you're writing books for children, so that's where we go on to children. You write in children's books. Now, you don't go into detail about food addiction in that because kids will think, what's that? Or they will just copy it. But children's books allows your imagination as a child to go everywhere. And I just like that because, I've written not unpublished it, I've just written a book, but you have to be so creative. And that's where your inner 5-year-old looking at the nursery comes in, because you see everything new. So you got to make children's books that accommodating.
I so appreciate your insights. Nobody has ever said this to me before. Tying in that little 4-year-old girl with the fact that I write children's books now. I just love that you did that. That is so beautiful. And also talking about going from a place of light to darkness to light again. It does feel similar to that little girl. And that's why I've always been saying that I write the books for the girl I used to be, but you put it exactly into those words. I love it because I don't know, you just made it come alive right now. That is who I am writing it to. That little 4-year-old that saw the world with all its brightness, so that children never have to go through that cynical, desperate stage of life later on. If they always understand the good purpose of life, and you can gain the skills for how to have a joyful life early on, then you don't have to play catch up like most of us have to play later on in life.
And that is the scary part, when you do have to play catch up, because you feel like when you do, you feel still so lost and so behind, because you think, I should have done that 2 years ago. I should have done that 10 years ago. I should have done that 20 years ago. And that's the passion I feel, because, like I said, books are creative, children's books more so, because some are illustrated, so that does help. But when you don't have an illustrated children's book, you picture it, and you've always heard of scenario about pictures makes a. So if you're listening to a podcast, I know this is visual as well, but if you listen to the audio, you just picture the presenter or the guest talking about it, and you then emphasize, so it will build on your empathy.
Yes.
So you as a 4-year-old, I can see it was like the reborn 4-year-old you've seen how it could have been, and then you made it better, and you just relived that stage where it was dark, where you was young, where you didn't know much. So that is the passion I feel from understanding that.
Beautiful. Beautiful. It's the world opening up again.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the feeling. And when I write my books, the funny thing is, I can get into a child's head like immediately. I feel like I'm that child. And usually the main character in my books is a 6-year-old boy. I don't know why, but that's how I identify in this book. And I'm a 6-year-old boy in a lot of my books. And I'm seeing the world through those eyes. And I could get into that headspace like in a moment, because I still see the world full of wonder, filled with questions, filled with possibilities.
Right. And you said about it being a boy, that is good, because alternate world, in the alternate world, you're not the same person, you're the opposite. So the alternate is, in your case, a boy. In my case, it would be a girl. So it wouldn't be right to be reflecting completely on yourself, even though you are writing about yourself. You were referring to yourself as the alternate sex in this situation.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. So, and in my books, a lot of the things I say, that what all my books have in common is they help children's souls to shine. But some of the books, they talk about how to have a healthy body, because part of letting your soul shine is having a healthy body. So I have books about prevention of abuse, because again, if a child is abused or neglected, their soul can shine fully. Very important for children to learn about prevention of abuse, and of course for parents to learn it. That's the thing with a picture book for very young children. Every age reads it. The parents read it, grandparents read it, every age, and even teenagers will pick up the book and look at it when no one's looking. So every age is reading a little child's picture book. The message can reach everyone. And I have books about let's stay healthy. Like, why is it important to eat healthy foods? Why is it important to move? Our bodies were designed to move. Why is it important to get enough sleep so we have energy the next day, we're happier the next day? Why is it important to even have good hygiene and wash with soap and water and brush our teeth and even floss our teeth, which is something I never learned as a child, because we can't see all these germs. They're invisible, you know. And another one of my books is called The Invisible Book, because there's so many things we believe in that are invisible. You know, there's time, there's feelings, there's thoughts. The wind is invisible. We see the effects of so many things that are invisible. So it's not that hard to believe that we too, in essence, are invisible spiritual beings with energy that goes on forever.
Yeah. So I always like to, ask this last few questions, but the last ultimate one is how, first of all, what would you say to future people, people listening or watching this? What would you say to them to be inspired for the future?
Oh, what a beautiful question. The main thing is to be inspired to live a joyful life. That's what I want to give people. And the way to live a joyful life is to be grateful. Because if we're not grateful for what we have right now, we are not going to be grateful for what we think will make us happy. That will last very briefly. It's the skills. We need to develop our gratitude skills, and we can practice right now, right this moment, with all the infinite gifts that we can enjoy right this moment in our lives.
And lastly, how can people find your books and your website? How can people get in contact with you?
Oh, okay. My children created a wonderful website. It's called thegetzbookshop.com. My last name is spelled Goetz, getzbookshop.com, where you could see presentations I give, all my books, my one book for adults, and all there's 41 books for children. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing your journey with us today. And
thank you.
And let's hope the inner soul will awaken in those people who desire, who crave for it, who are looking for that way out.
Oh, amen. That is so beautiful. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was The Journey, hosted by Wise Words Imaging, hosted by David Hackett. Be sure to like, subscribe and listen to another journey coming soon.